Welcome everyone to the Slamming Duck Cricket Show. We are brothers and we talk about everything cricket. So welcome Nakul. So let's start. Today we'll talk about RCB versus CSK to begin with. Great match. What a performance by both the teams actually. But I think RCB held their nerves in the end and was able to go through the line. So great performances, great emotions. I think it was a spectacle at the end of the day. I think great script written by whosoever.
Jisha.
Great chances for RCB to go ahead because now they have qualified and that they have this emotion and the support going with them. So hopefully they come through this time.
Yes, it's still a long way to go. They have done 6 and 6. Can they do 9 and 9? That's to be seen.
Well, that would be like Australia.
Yeah, interestingly, Australia did that in the World Cup. And also, remembering from IPL, one interesting statistic I'll give to you is that only once a team which has not qualified as top two have gone on to win the IPL.
Okay, which year was that?
So that year was 2016. SRH did it and they beat RCB themselves in the final.
So David Warner was the captain, right? At that point of
Yes,
time.
right.
I think he was the greatest player for SRH, according to me, who
Yeah, so
who made the
SRH.
franchise like really mainstream.
Yeah, but now Pat Cummins has taken over, and how beautifully he has done so. Because now they play a different kind of cricket altogether, and they also have qualified for the top four, and they are qualified as top two, which nobody saw coming. As Rajasthan Royals were sitting at the first spot at halfway stage, and RCB were sitting at number 10 at the same point of time.
So we'll talk about that a little later when we talk about KKR versus SRH. But for now, I want you to concentrate a little bit on RCB versus CSK, wherein like we were talking about can they do Australia like 9 and 9 what they did for the T20 World Cup. But I also think that Australia in the past, even if you look at like ODI World Cups, they have gone through and through like a couple of times as far as I remember. So that's such an Australian thing to enter the tournament and go through and through. But obviously, that's not the case over here. But from the point where they started winning, like 6 and 6, they have already done. Can they go ahead and do 9 and 9? What do you think about their chances?
I think first up they are facing RR, who is the weakest team heading into the playoffs. They don't have Josh Butler with them, which is a huge dent to the batting lineup. And also their form has gotten not a bit wobbly, but a lot wobbly going into the semis. So they are very low on confidence. Nobody as such is firing. They are coming with the losing streak and going against a team which has a winning streak. So I think in the first game, RCB is the team which is going to enter as favorites. And
But
that
do you
game will be
think,
played in Ahmedabad.
yeah, so do you think the law of averages, because RR is coming from a losing streak, even though they were performing really well, that's why they have qualified. So with them coming with the losing streak, obviously trying to prove something and resetting everything right now, because now they have entered the playoffs. So they must have clicked on the reset button and they'll be like, now it's a new day kind of a thing. And yes, it is. So, so and RCB coming like from such a high emotion game, wherein they might be like, too exhausted in terms of they have given it all to reach this point, and now coming out there and performing once again at a level wherein they would need to qualify. It's a knockout game once again. So what do you think like about that? Like, do you think that can have some sort of an impact on the game or not, or will RCB like two professionals like Australians and just go out and play with thick skin?
So on this one, yes, RR will look to reset as quickly as they can. The good thing from RCB's point of view is that KKR and SRH play first, so they do have some gap to settle their nerves and come out fresh for this game. Because after such a high intensity and high emotion game, you need some time to get back into the act. And the positive from RCB's side was that Glenn Maxwell replacing Bill Jacks, who was in great form, has also performed very well, and that includes knocking the opposition captain out on the first delivery, which he is very fond of, as he also did that against India on 19th November last year.
Why do you have to bring that always? And
Uh,
I think he did a similar thing in this particular match as well, taking out the opposition's captain on the very first ball, like what he did to Rohit Sharma on November 19th. So he definitely has some sort of an impact on the game whenever he is playing high stakes game, and whenever you tell him that like you're playing for Australia, probably that's the thing Virat Kohli might have just whispered in his ear. Just think like you're playing for Australia.
yes, he possibly could have, and also the fact that Maxwell was dropped midway, so there was a lot to prove from his side. And also, if I go back and remember, even in 2015 World Cup final, I think he got Kane Williamson out in that game as well, who was not the captain at that point of time, but such a huge wicket to take at a huge stage. And in that World Cup, Australia were not playing a frontline spinner. So he was the one given the duty of the frontline spinner in that World Cup. And then we also saw Glenn Maxwell playing a huge role in the T20 World Cup that Australia won in UAE, because he just thinks like a batter while bowling, and that's what makes it very difficult to go off against him.
I think he
And it,
brings in the mindset. I completely agree with you. And he brings in the mindset wherein he has that winning attitude as well with him. Obviously, being part of the team who has won like many World Cups so far. So he brings that thing to the game, and plus the energy overall as well that matches the energy of Virat Kohli. So they gel up really well in
and
terms of that.
interestingly enough, Glenn Maxwell's Melbourne Stars have also not ever won the tournament.
Wow, what a fact!
I'll also give
What
you
a
another
fact!
one. I'll
Yeah.
also give you another one. Apart from an Indian captain, only Australian captains have won IPL. So if Faf du Plessis goes on to win, he would be the first
Hmm.
South African captain to do so.
To do so, like I mean, internationally and like even in IPL.
Internationally, interestingly, nobody talks about the Champions Trophy they won. They do have one
Ah,
ICC trophy, but a lot of people tend to ignore that. So yes,
which
but
year?
still,
Which year? Which year was that?
I think that was 1998.
Way
Post
long
2000, they
ago.
have not won any ICC tournament, but yes, they do have one Champions Trophy, which is up for debate. Some people don't count it as a huge trophy, but then some people
Yeah,
do. And surprisingly, India's last win also was a Champions Trophy in 2013
yeah.
under MS Dhoni. So
But when India won, it was considered as a big trophy. But when South Africa won, people just conveniently ignore the fact because they just want to say this thing aloud that they are the chokers. They never win an ICC tournament. Obviously, they have not won like the major ones, but still, I personally feel that ICC Champions Trophy is big enough. And on that note, like we'll be talking about the ICC Champions Trophy later on as well. So, in terms of this particular match now, I mean, in terms of RCB, now they will be playing the playoffs, and in terms of the venues, let's get on to that.
So the first one, the first game they'll play against the Rajasthan Royals will be at Ahmedabad, and if they are to win that one, then they'll go on to play the loser of SRH and KKR's game on 24th of May, Friday, in Chepak, and the winner of that match will play the qualifier from the first game on 26th of May in the final.
Yeah, that sounds good. And what do you think about their record at M?
At Ahmedabad, I don't really know how well they have fared, to be honest, but at Chepak, I thought that they would have a bad record considering their bowling has not been the strongest suit for them. But surprisingly, after the home team and Mumbai Indians, they are third on the list of having the best record at that ground. But yeah, so KKR does not have a great record despite of having an amazing spin bowling attack. They don't have a great record at Chepak, but they won the biggest game that mattered, and that was the final over them in 2012
Yeah,
against
it
the
was
home team.
Bisla. It was Bisla
Yes, it was
who wrecked the
Bisla, and
havoc.
also Jack Kallis played a beautiful knock as well. I think he scored 69 as well in that game.
Important runs. But I think Bisla scored a century, and he ensured that
No,
they.
Bisla, I don't think he scored a century. I think he scored around 90 runs in that game.
Oh, I need to work
But
on
yeah,
my stats.
but 90 runs in the final is bigger than a century, as
Yeah,
long as you
absolutely.
are on the winning side of it.
Winning side. Yeah. So I think winning is most important. It's not about personal records.
On that note, I have not yet seen the episode, but I saw Gautam Gambhir's snippet of going on Ashwin's show, and he said that people don't pay money to see me smile; they pay money to see me win.
Wow.
So, as we
I
were
think,
discussing the other day on the mindset that he's bringing, and he might potentially be India's next coach as well. So that's going to be a really positive sign for Team India going forward.
yeah, I think so as well. And if he's coming on the Ashwin show, I think that will be a very interesting conversation because in the past, Ashwin has talked about the fact that Gautam Gambhir hasn't been given the credit he deserves. And he's been looked in the light wherein he seems to be controversial, but he goes ahead and talks about whatever he sees, like in his honest opinion. So moving on from here, I think let me just put you in the spot and ask you what are your key players to look out for from the RCB side?
Against the game, against the match,
Obviously, now the
sorry,
next match.
in the match against RR,
Correct.
the key players is obviously Virat Kohli is the first one to begin with and lead with, and to follow that, I would say Faf du Plessis. He's in great form, and the way he took that catch of Mitch Santner, which was also sort of a revenge of the controversial moment that happened earlier in the game, wherein he was definitely not out and given out. And this was not the first instance of a decision that was controversial in this IPL.
Yeah.
Earlier, also, the decision we talked about in the first video of Sanju Samson, that was also controversial. And I think that time also it was Michael Goff, and this time also it was the same third umpire.
So is he part of the script?
No, he's not part of Mumbai Indians.
No, but he was trying to make sure that CSK wins, but it didn't happen. So key players for you are Virat Kohli and Faf du Plessis.
Yes,
So
and I would also say that another key player is Rajat Patidar because he's really hitting it from ball number one, and that becomes the difference in the end of reaching 200 or 218, how they made it in the previous game against CSK.
I personally feel that, like in terms of the key players, obviously Virat Kohli is there definitely because he'll be setting the tone up front. He and Faf. But for me, who I look forward to is Rajat, who is playing really well. He's in good touch, and in and Glenn Maxwell for me once again, even in batting, because we all know like what he did against Afghanistan in the World Cup, playing on one leg. I think he has that potential, and it's a big stage. You never know; he can just come off guard and maybe score 90 runs of 30, 40 balls and just
Yes,
put them in the position where they just end up winning.
yes, and it would be really interesting if they do end up meeting SRH somewhere in the knockouts because SRH scored 280 something runs against them. But I think SRH lost their second game against RCB, if I remember correctly. So that would be a nice grudge match to have.
I think another important thing is like I wanted to bring up was the fact that in the last 5 seasons, RCB has qualified 4 times. So that shows their consistency. Okay. And at the same point of time, I think RCB, whenever they have qualified before, they have lost to these 3 teams, which are already there in the playoffs in these stages. So it's kind of a grudge for them, like against all the teams. Plus, I would just say that they've been consistent. I know like they are the ones on the receiving end always. Like they are not doing well and this and that because they are the biggest franchise according to me in IPL. So they have a lot of eyes on them. But they have shown consistency in the past 5 years, wherein they have qualified like 4 times.
So hopefully, or maybe this is the year that they can do a 2-2. They've already won the women's IPL, and maybe they can go on and
Yeah.
accomplish the big one for Virat Kohli. and
Absolutely.
the
Oh,
city of Bangalore, because there were crazy fireworks the other day. I saw a video on Instagram, so they went berserk.
I mean, the fans are crazy. The fans really back their team.
And I think apart from the sea of yellow, which is there in every city that Chennai Super Kings plays in, apart from that, I think the most loyal fan base of IPL for a particular team is RCB.
I think RCB has a bigger fan base than CSK, according to me. Like
Yeah,
if you talk about globally.
yes, from team's point of view, yes, but the fact that CSK gets support everywhere they play, that does not happen, I think, with RCB.
Yeah, I think because it's because of MS Dhoni. So, like now we're talking about MS Dhoni. What do you think about his legacy, and where do you think he's going from here?
Uh, I don't think we can add too much points about his legacy because the whole world knows what a great legend of the game he is. But from IPL's point of view, this could well be his last. As we saw on video, there was some handshake controversy. Don't know what happened over there, but I'm pretty sure there will be nothing between Virat and MS as we have seen before. The media likes to cook up stories, but it's nothing there. It's nothing personal. And from his
Yeah.
fitness point of view, let's see if he can come up next year and also just play for a couple of months, which is very difficult if you're not playing in the rest of the year. But we have seen him do that. He's, I think, is very much like the Undertaker in WrestleMania season.
I think I just read somewhere that he's probably going ahead with a surgery in London. So, which will keep him out of action for like next 5 to 6 months, and then he will decide upon his future based on the recovery and how he's feeling. So that was just one of the news that I read. I'm not really sure that if that is true or not, but we'll know about it soon enough.
Yes, and they
So,
have not announced anything yet. And CSK Crickbus confirmed today that CSK has not informed them anything about Dhoni's future as of now.
all right. So I think all the best to him, and he's given us great memories,
I think
great
it's the
matches.
trio of MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli, and Rohit Sharma,
Yeah.
who are all not captains of their respective franchises now.
Ravi Shastri went to Ashwin's podcast. He also said this thing that Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and MS Dhoni have really shaped up IPL because their personal brands are so huge, and it has impacted the franchise cricket so much, and the respective franchises they've been part of right now. So they have made them like big franchises. So these three players are marquee players in terms of ensuring that IPL is where IPL is at.
Yeah, it totally is true. And also the fact that the these three teams, specifically CSK and MI, have been so consistent, having won 5 IPLs each. Their record has been phenomenal, and to see Mumbai Indians winning first time in 2013 and then going on to win 5, I think in the next 7
Wow.
years itself.
Wow. I think they were just like at their peak at that point of time. They were doing everything right in terms of selection, in terms of putting the performances, and the captaincy was going really well as well.
Yes, totally. But we have seen with MI, so that's a block of 7 or 8 years they had, but CSK has been the most consistent team if you look at
Yep.
it. And as we were talking about MS, so I think CSK have qualified on most of the occasions, and even when he was playing for Rising Pune, they also qualified for the finals, and they lost to Mumbai Indians that year. But the consistency that MS has brought in, because as Steven Smith was talking in one of his videos, that MS was going about his business, and obviously Steven Smith could not say anything to him. He would just follow what MS would say.
But on screen, on paper, Steven Smith was the captain. That was a strange thing at
And
that
that was
point
a
of
very
time.
ballsy move by Pune. But also because CSK and Rajasthan Royals were banned, so I think
Yeah.
keeping MS as captain would have had a lot of negative eyes at that point of time. So I think maybe that was the decision not to
Well,
make him captain
maybe that
in
could
those
be,
particular 2 seasons.
yeah, maybe that could be one of the reasons. But like in terms of CSK, I think they have qualified for a record 12 times, which is equivalent to MI, but they have played two less seasons due to the ban, as we were talking about
Yes.
that. So with this, I think let's talk about Rohit Sharma as well. I
Yeah,
think
for
according to me, he has played his last game for MI because, like, I agree with this thing, and even Michael Vaughan said it on air that if he is the captain of Indian cricket team, he should be the captain of one of the franchises in IPL, and probably he'll be up for grabs next season. A lot of teams will have their eyes on him, not just as a player, but also the fact that they'll make him the captain.
but where does he go? What do you reckon?
I think if you look at the teams for now, if, for example, after this season, Paf is no longer part of RCB, he can also go to RCB.
No, but
That's one of the
if
places.
if RCB does go on to lift the IPL this time, then I don't see any reason for Faf to not continue next year.
Then in that case, I think there's another big option over here is like CSK. If they want to take him, make him the captain with MS Dhoni being in the side as well, that would be a great, great moment in the history of IPL wherein Rohit Sharma and MS Dhoni are playing together. If Dhoni continues to play, for that matter. But I don't want to see him with Delhi or Punjab, basically. So I think he'll be a waste with those two franchises.
Or maybe he can just build those franchises and give them their first IPL trophy.
That could be the case, but I just personally, I feel he'll be a waste because the entire management and how they operate, how they select the team, it has always been so stupid.
No, but for Punjab, it has been a very difficult last 10 years. They have not qualified. But
Yeah,
Delhi has been consistent in the last 5, 6 years. They came up
they've been
short this
better.
time, but yes, they have made finals. And ever since Ricky Ponting and Saurav Ganguly have joined the coaching staff, Delhi have been consistent. Earlier under Shreyas Iyer and now under Rishabh Pant.
Yeah, I think, but if they have to take Rohit Sharma once again and make him the captain, I think they're pretty good with their captain in terms of Rishabh Pant. He's a young guy who is coming of age and he's performing decently well after coming off injury and that fatal accident. And he's been good. Obviously, there was a ban on him in the previous game, but he's been good so far in terms of his captaincy and his batting performance as well. So I don't see him being placed in Delhi in particular, specifically from the point of view that any franchise who will be taking him will be making him the captain. So what I see is franchises like maybe Gujarat Titans now, if they want to go with someone who's more experienced compared to Shubman Gill, who was very new, though he did a great job in terms of being captain and as the captaincy was handed over to him at the very last minute. But still, I think he pulled off really well. But just for him to learn under Rohit's wings, I think that could be one of the scenarios.
I
But
think one interesting scenario could be the fact that I don't see KL Rahul playing for Lucknow next year.
oh yes,
So
I
they will
agree.
be on the lookout for a captain and they might as well shed 20-25 crores on Rohit Sharma as it's going to be a mega auction.
Yeah, that could be the case as well. Like they might just end up going for Rohit Sharma, like all berserk. But that's all speculation if he goes and enters the pool. But I personally think that he should. I just see him as the captain, as at least right now, for another
And I
couple of
think
years.
the upcoming T20 World Cup, if India goes on to lift this World Cup, then definitely you can't have
Then it's
him
a sure
as
shot thing.
non-captain.
Yeah, then it's a sure shot thing that if India finally wins a World Cup under his captaincy, then definitely everyone will be gunning for him. And I think he showed some form in the last game, wherein he scored quick fire 68. So it was pretty good. So let's move on. I think it's been a long discussion on this. So let's move on to our next match, KKR versus SRH. So I think in this particular match, KKR is a bit short on match practice because the last full game they played was on May 5th. Other than that, it has been rain affected matches. So that could be one of the areas which would be like, in a way, going against them. straight away getting into the playoffs and haven't been playing like a full match, haven't played a full match. And another point is like they were like their opening was set in terms of Phil Salt and Sunil Narine, and now Phil Salt is not there with them because he's left for his national duties. So I think that might just be a cause of concern for the team because now they'll have to shift and change things in the entire order. So that might just cause them some issues. So they just need to be concerned about that and come up like with a plan to go ahead and tackle this situation.
I think it's going to be a battle of the power play in this match. These two teams, I think, have scored 6 times each more than 70 runs in the power plays. And although Phil Salt and Sunil Narine were doing it together, but I think they might just send Nitish Rana to open. Who knows? And as far as SRH is concerned, it's going to be obviously Travis Head and Abhishek Sharma, who is also in an interesting battle with Virat Kohli for most number of sixes in this IPL. As at the moment, Abhishek Sharma is leading the battle, but it's going to be interesting who ends up on top in that one. And apart from the power play, I think it's going to be the match is going to be in Ahmedabad once again. So I think it will be a 180-190 deck. So it would be interesting to see how SRH bowls because even though they have scored plenty of runs, they have not defended as well at times. So that's going to be an area of concern for them. But they are coming in with great momentum and they are playing fearless cricket. So that is something which is very well likely to go in their favor. So let's
Well,
see.
I think both the teams. I think both the teams are playing in a very similar fashion in terms of going berserk at the top and scoring some hefty runs. So both are heavily reliant on their opening partnerships in some way or the other. And I think it will come down to the fact that which team goes ahead and plays better power play in the end. Also, in terms of bowling, I'll say SRH do have a slight advantage because like Bhuvneshwar Kumar has hit some form when he's opening the bowling and if he's ensuring that they're if KKR's openers are not performing, so that will be a big dent for them. So I think that's one area where SRH has an advantage. But on the other side, I think KKR's spin department is really good in terms of if Nareen goes on and takes like a couple of wickets for 14 runs in his 4 overs, or even Varun Chakravarti for that matter. I think so. That's a great battle to be seen because both the sides are heavily reliant on openers, and whosoever's bowling, like in terms of the opening partnership in the bowling department, will perform better, will actually have a great impact on the game. So the key players to look out for you are for this game.
I would say Mitchell Stark, apart from Sunil Narine, obviously. And I'll also throw in Shreyas Iyer. He's yet to fire in this tournament. He's the captain. The team has played very well.
The key players for you are Mitchell Stark and Sunil Narine
And Shreyas.
and Shreyas Iyer. That's from the KKR side. What do you think about SRH?
I'll definitely go with Travis Head. Got out for a golden duck in the previous game, but
Yeah,
he's a big match player, as we all know, from
yeah.
last year's WTC final, followed with the World Cup final. So definitely Travis Head, he comes in as an impact player. He's fresh, does not have to field in so much heat that is there currently. So he's just phenomenal. And the other player to watch out for from their side is obviously Abhishek Sharma, who comes out to open with him. They really set the tone at the top, which is then followed up by players like Nitish Reddy and Klasin. But another player to watch out for from their side, I think, would be T Natarajan. Because a lot of times Captain Pat has gone to him and he has delivered some beautiful Yorkers in this season. So I think those will be the players to watch out for.
Well, I think the last time Patrick Cummins and Travis Head was playing in Ahmedabad, 19 November, at that point of time in the World Cup when they played together, they silenced the crowd. So will they be able to silence the crowd once again? Even though now the crowd won't be like entirely with KKR, it'll be a mix for both of them. So I think that will be one of the great things. And for me, the player to look out for will be Pat Cummins from SRH side because it's a big game. He's the captain. I think he'll be leading from the front. And from the KKR side, I think the person who will set the tone is Sunil Narine, both from batting and bowling perspective. So let's move on. I think we've talked a lot about IPL, and there's another thing that happened in world cricket. One of the greatest fast bowlers have retired. James Anderson. His last match will be the first match of the summer in England. So there are some like controversial things around his retirement. So let's talk about that.
So, as per what I have read online, the directors and the management of England cricket, they called Brendan McCullum and they flew him from New Zealand to England to discuss this thing. And although James Anderson sort of knew what the conversation is going to be about, but you're still unsure until it actually happens. So they had made their decisions on how they want to move forward. Yeah, even Stuart Broad has retired recently after the Ashes. So now they want to go in a completely newer direction. As James Anderson have been playing for, I think, more than 2 decades now, being the highest wicket taker for England in not just Test cricket, but even in one-day cricket, which was very surprising to me.
That was a very strange fact for me. Like England hasn't produced any other bowler. Like I think he's got 269
Yes.
wickets in ODI, and that's the highest, and he's the highest wicket taker for England in ODIs. Very, very surprising fact.
And I think he's also the first one to take a hat trick.
Okay.
That is another stat. And another interesting stat is that he was also part of the team in 2010, which went on to win the T20 World Cup. Although he did not feature in any game, but he was part of that squad. So he's done amazing things during his career. And I think the highlights of that would be the away Ashes victory in Australia in 2010 and 11, followed up by the away victory in India in 2012.
Yes. And I think he had a great part to play in both the series. He played really well. There were questions on him, like in terms of he playing in Australia. He was going for runs when he used to play before this particular series, and even in India, like he cannot get wickets on these conditions. But I think he proved everyone wrong with his abilities to reverse swing in India. He took many wickets and he had like a great impact on the game. And another interesting thing, I think, is that he has played 100 test matches in England, which is a record because on the second spot it's Sachin Tendulkar playing 94 in India. So he's beaten Sachin's record there. And I
But
don't
he's going
think,
to lose by 12 test matches on the overall.
yeah, but I don't think now any player will come and play like 188 test matches or 200 test matches. But for a fast bowler to play 188 test matches is a great achievement.
Indeed, it is. It's extremely difficult for a fast bowler, and especially coming from the fact that his age to keep up the fitness, it's extremely difficult on every aspect. And the way the game has moved on, specifically the way England themselves are playing, it's tough to be a part of that team and that transition that he made. Although, yes, he has predominantly played mostly in England in the latter parts of his career, but still to go on there and to transition, and specifically, so the way he struggled in the first Ashes Test match last year, where he said that this is a wicket I can't bowl on, they are just murdering my career.
Yeah.
So the fact that England have gone on to prepare extremely flat decks for their batters have really changed the dynamic of the game.
So it's baseball era,
It totally is.
and we all know where it is heading. So, what do you think? Was it the right time to retire?
I would say yes, it was. He's played a lot. He's done everything there is to do in his career. And so one thing that we all do is we question the decisions that are made. But Brendan McCullum is such a genius of the game. So the decisions that he makes. So after a couple of years, we end up discussing that, okay, this was a genius move. Because even the 2019 World Cup that England won, Owen Morgan credited a lot of it to Brendan McCullum's way of playing. So it is just genius the way he plays and the way he strategizes the game.
Yeah. But do you think does he like deserve another Ashes go? Like because I think it was a dream retirement for Stuart Broad, retiring after the Ashes. Whether he should have considered getting retired at that point of time itself, retiring on a high, like in terms of playing the Ashes, or is it the right kind of retirement like he's getting, like, or he deserves to be playing another match with Australia, like an Ashes series?
So the problem with playing another match with Australia is the fact that first of all it's going to be at the end of next year.
Wow.
So it's far, far away.
Yeah.
And another issue like I would have with that is the fact that England does not even compete down under. So I don't see that as a happy retirement for him either. So and the good part is that he's retiring on the same ground on which he debuted. I think so.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty sweet finish to his amazing story. And would love to see him go out on a high and take a 5 for or a 10 for in that game.
Exactly.
And would
Uh,
miss the battles he had with Virat Kohli over the last
wow.
7 or 8 years. One of the best battles to have. After being, I think, the bowler to dismiss Sachin Tendulkar the most number of times.
Yep.
So it was really amazing.
I think he is the great ambassador of the game. He's played this game and given us so many great memories. And I think not only with his bowling, but also with his batting, like scoring 81 runs against India. And apart from that, he being either on the the striker's end for for all the iconic Test match endings. So that's been like a great show from his side. So I think he deserves it. He's like played really well. So where does they go from this Anderson Rod era?
It's a tough one, but I think for the moment they'll have to go with Ollie Robinson, Mark Wood, and Chris Wokes, and maybe someone like Reece Topley if they do play Test cricket. So at the
Jofra
moment,
Archer.
this so Jofra Archer currently is playing the T20 World Cup, but he is
Yeah.
not going to come back into Test cricket. So that is something they have already announced. And a huge thing that all Indian viewers are going to miss is switching on the TV at 3:30 p.m. and then see James Anderson and Stuart Broad from both ends,
Yeah.
swinging it amazingly well and disturbing the stumps all around.
Wow, what a sight it used to be. And so one thing for James Anderson,
Yeah, absolute goat.
yeah, you deserve it. Chants all around Lords. Imagine that would be a great spectacle as well. So, moving on, I think the next point I wanted to talk about was the Champions Trophy. So, first thing first, will it be a 50 over game or a 20 over game? And that to the hosts are Pakistan. So, do you think India will be flying to Pakistan or will be once again a hybrid kind of a model?
Uh, so first I'll answer the second question, and I don't think at all that India will be traveling to Pakistan to play. So just like the Asia Cup, it will be in a hybrid format where each country will have to travel to Sri Lanka to play India and then travel back to Pakistan to play half of it. And for the format, I think they can really. What I would like to see is them trying a 40 over one day game instead of a T20 format because we do have a T20 format and we transitioned from a 60 over game to a 50 over game long ago. And
Yep.
everybody was discussing around the 50 over World Cup that it may be time. So this World Cup had a lot of interest for a couple of reasons, and the major one being that India were the host of it. So
Yeah.
we had houseful grounds in most of the games that were played. But the next one being in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Kenya, I think so. That will not be the case. So I think they can really try the 40 over format in the Champions Trophy to see if it clicks.
Well, I think Ravi Shastri also said the same thing. He is also of the view that now the game will eventually shift to the 40 over thing instead of 50 overs because it's way too long. Uh, you know, just to sit and keep the audiences hooked for 50 overs. So I think probably that would be the movement forward, and 2020 will remain like the same. And Test cricket will always continue because I think that's the epitome of the game, wherein the true game is played. But in terms of ODI, I think the future will be like a 40 over game. So hopefully that happens because I think a lot of viewers have lost interest in the 50 over game. So I think that's there, but we still don't know like whether it will be a 50 over game or a 20 over game in terms of the Champions Trophy. But in terms of Pakistan being the host and it being in a hybrid model, let's say if India reaches the final, what will happen at that point of time?
I think they'll have to keep two venues ready. If India is playing the finals, I think it will be played in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or UAE, whoever ends up being the co-host.
Okay.
And
So
if
you don't think
Pakistan,
even if India reaches the final, they still won't go to Pakistan, even just to play one game.
no, they won't.
I think in terms of the World Cup coming up, there is no reserve day for the second semi-final. So I think they've just extended the time by 4 hours, which can be an issue because it is most likely if India qualifies, India will be playing the second semi-final.
Yes, that has been confirmed to Crickbus that India will indeed play the second semi-final, which does not have a reserve day. And I think it rains a lot in West Indies, as we all know.
Yep.
So it can be tricky. The first semi-final does have a reserve day, but for the second one, they are like that they can't take it to the next day as 29th is the final. So that is something we all have to live with. It would become really tricky in a situation if the game does wash out. Then I think it will go back to once again who won in the league stages or who qualified at a better point.
Yeah. I think that can have a big impact, like on any particular team who's playing at that particular venue at that time, because reserve day is important specifically for a knockout game, and it's a huge stage like a World Cup. And then coming down to the fact that okay, that team played the other team and they won in the league stage. Now they will qualify. It just kind of put some sort of a bad taste in the mouth. And specifically, if India would be on the receiving end of it, I think it would be like riots everywhere.
And if England would be on the receiving end of it, it would be unfair to the game.
Like,
But at
yeah,
the
it was
same time,
absolutely fair.
it would be extremely sweet as well at the same point of time.
Yeah. But it was absolutely
Imagine
fair back in 2019.
imagine now New Zealand on the other side, New Zealand going through because of that thing. It would be amazing.
Yes. Then they won't be able to say anything because they've already done them wrong in the past. But if it would be Australia versus England and Australia qualifies due to this thing, then they'll cry out loud.
Oh, they definitely will. Then they cry out on the roofs that they have written themselves.
Yeah. And then the best part would be that the Ashes rivalry will start from there and then.
Oh yes.
So I think just one more point I wanted to talk about today was the fact that India is just playing one warm-up game before the World Cup. So, and obviously the conditions will be different. Like India will be flying to US and West Indies. They won't be the same as they are in the IPL. So what do you think? Like once again, there is a heated debate going on, like IPL being too closely around the World Cup, too close around the World Cup, and players are just not getting enough warm-up games or to gel up together as a team. So I think that's like a very interesting take and very interesting debate going on over here around this topic, and I think it comes up every year.
Yes, we have seen that happen twice now with the World Test Championship final. So, in that case, I saw Harsha Bhogle say that the IPL has to stay. There is no other way to keep cricket alive because of the money that IPL is bringing. And I think the good part about this T20 World Cup is that the way it starts. So, you don't really play difficult teams to begin with. You can't take anyone lightly, but at the same point of time, so the one warm up that India does play against Bangladesh on 1st of June. So I think that should be enough. The players are coming after playing at least 14 games in IPL. Some of them have already flown down there, and I think others will fly on 25th and 26th now.
Yeah.
So I think the team will come together, and first they'll play against Bangladesh, and Then before the big match against Pakistan, India does play one game on, I think, 5th of June. So I think this time it would be fine as long as the players are not immensely fatigued. So I think the rest between IPL and the first major game that they play is also very important.
Yeah. But I think once again, like as Harsha Bogle has said, like there are other people who have also talked about it. Someone like Harbhajan Singh is of the view that India should play 3 to 4 at least, like if not like 3 to 4, at least a couple of warm-up games before the World Cup, so that you get to know the conditions and you play against bigger teams in terms of the World Cup practice matches, so that you're much ready. Like as a team, you have to gel and see your spots, and it's just not like similar to what IPL is, because IPL is a different kind of a game. It's not international cricket, even though it is match practice, but it's not like match practice with your team in particular. But on the other side, Anil Kumble has a very different kind of a take on this, and he says like the practice that you get that you get during IPL is immense. Like you're playing high pressure game, 14, 16 games, depending on where you end up. That's good enough in terms of the practice, and you don't need anything else. You can just straight away go into any tournament after IPL and perform.
And I think that will be the same case if we even look at someone like Glenn Maxwell or Mitchell Stark. They'll also be flying straight to play. So I think it's going to be the same for every team or every main player which participates in the IPL.
No, but I think
And
for India, I think everyone does. It's not like the entire team, like for the Australia, the entire team is not playing. But definitely their main key players are definitely playing. But still, with India, I think it's a different thing, wherein everyone is playing, everyone will be fatigued, because that has happened in the past.
I think the bigger impact would be to have the roles defined. I think if the roles are clearly defined, then the players have a lot of experience. The players are
Hmm.
phenomenal, as we have all seen in high pressure games in IPL. So they can really step up as long as the vision is clear and if they perform their roles
Yeah.
perfectly well.
All right. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.